Good morning, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News here on the South Florida Conservative News Center. It's Monday, November 24th, days away from Thanksgiving. And we're going to talk about the people are going back and forth on Trump meeting Mamdani in the White House and who called who a bitch and who beat who down. You can go any way you want on that. I was surprised at the questions coming out of the press, actually, that were sort of calling Mamdani out as being, that little bitch for not saying to Trump's face he could be a fascist. And Trump's like, nah, go ahead and say it. It's like, you're talking to a 5-year-old. Funny though that may be, people were not seeing what, as you looked at it, is most important about this whole thing. And we're going to talk about this as the breaking political movement that most of the media completely missed. President Trump met with New York City's incoming mayor, Zohran Mamdani. And instead of having, like we said, the tension, the confrontation, we got something much more interesting. We got Donald Trump, president and leader of the free world, being gracious. He was the cajoling older uncle or whatever, your grandfather at Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. And that was not an accident. So let's look at what really was going on, why this meeting may be one of Trump's smartest political plays yet, and how it could completely change the balance of power in New York politics. As to New York politics and Mamdani, if you go back in our site, you will find that we have done two or three evaluations of Mamdani, what he could possibly do. Also, Governor Hochul, what she could possibly do, and AOC and what she could possibly do. They are all back there. I suggest you look at them if you are not following this, because New York is a pivotal spot for Trump's government due to the fact A, he's a New Yorker, B, he has a large amount of real estate there, C, everybody in the third world and second world think that the United States is embodied in the city of New York, which it's not, but we got to go with that. And there is our major finance networks are hooked up in New York, which there's nothing we can do about that either. So when the cameras are out there and they're both there, and if you like the deal, he has Mamdani stand far enough away from the desk the entire time while he is seated. But that's something for somebody else to talk about. Who stared who down, who smiled, who showed dominance. The real question isn't who won the optics. The real question is, why did Trump go out of his way to praise Mamdani at all? I mean, he could have just sat there and threw shit at him for 15 minutes in his true fashion. And what's he going to do about it? You're in my cave. You are in the Oval Office. I am the leader of the free world, and I will grind you to dust to break my bread, right? Bake my bread. Because Trump understands something the media doesn't get. And it's Mamdani is walking into a political buzzsaw, and all the damage is going to be coming from his party, meaning Mamdani's party is going to be the ones that fuck him up. Okay. It is the truth. Almost everything Mamdani campaigned on is dead on arrival in Albany. We've already talked about it. That's why when people are still out there clutching their pearls and getting their panties wet, we're like, who cares? He can be in charge for 10 years. He can't do anything he wants. So Governor Kathy Hochul has no desire to finance a mayor from the Democratic Socialists of America. Governor Kathy Hochul is trying to keep her illegals in the state through the census to lock the state down to become part of her kleptocracy. She has no time for these fly-by-night Democratic Socialists and champagne socialists or AOC, for that matter. She's not going to hand him subway expansion money. She's not going to bail out the MTA again. She's not going to greenlight new social spending programs. Even his transit proposals, the core of his whole platform, are likely to be smothered by state politics because he made promises that he cannot fulfill under the charter of the city of New York. So Mamdani's in a bind here. He's great rhetoric. He talks that shit, as they say. He can talk that shit like nobody, but he has no pathway to deliver results. And Trump knows this. They make it sound like Trump never lived in New York. It's like Trump was like buried in some fucking prehistoric shell somewhere in the nuclear. He's like Godzilla, right? And a nuclear test has brought him to the surface. He knows the in and outs of New York City. And people are like, oh, well, what can he know? He's a billionaire, his daddy. Shut the fuck up. I'm so sick of hearing that stuff about him being a millionaire and his daddy, blah, blah, blah. Ask any billionaire how hard it is to go from a millionaire to a billionaire. It is not exactly easy. And there are a lot of millionaires out there. I got a whole neighborhood full of them because the house alone is worth over $1 million. The new people, right? So instead of him going out there, Trump going out there and kicking his ass, he goes and he praises him. He did the Kim Jong-un, if you looked at it. Oh, he's a really great guy. You know, he's lovely. He's a great dancer, shows respect. He offers partnership. He doesn't offer aid, he offers partnership. This denies Mamdani the socialist playbook. He cannot cast Trump as the villain if Trump refuses to play the part. In fact, Trump positioned himself as the one who can actually help the mayor and quote unquote the socialists accomplish anything at all. And that's why, and now is where it gets interesting, right? Trump can open federal doors that Mamdani simply cannot access through Kathy Hochul, through the Albany Democrats, or through the hardcore socialists and led in that area by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So let's look at specifics before you cry. Transportation. Trump can unlock US DOT grants, fast track approvals, and targeted funding for infrastructure. I would guess, without even looking into the books, there are probably 30 shovel-ready mass transit projects available to the city of New York that have been okayed and greenlit. Trump has had the pushback from the Democrats that would not allow them to go forward because that would have assisted in his new industrialization of America. But Mamdani needs it. So if he is smart, he is going to have to play the game and go with Trump to the DOT. Public safety. He can direct, meaning Trump, federal law enforcement support to New York with no ideological strings attached. Migrant crisis relief. Emergency FEMA reimbursements and DHS resources can follow immediately. Now, they can be slow poison, they could go there and say that, oh, we're just here to hand out blankets and this and that and the other thing. But in the meantime, they're catching the flow. They're seeing who the enemy is, meaning the opposition forces that are socialists, keeping us from discharging these illegal immigrants. Because if you're living in New York City, you're not working in a car factory. You're not working in a construction site. You're not doing any of that shit to any great level. You are just there to suck on the teat of the United States welfare system. And that is the truth. When they show you these hardworking whatevers, they're always out in the West or out in California. Can't show you that in New York because they don't fucking work, right? They're just there to draw a paycheck and devote to where they're supposed to. So that he can do some work with them under migrant crisis relief. Now, urban jobs, and this gets around to what we've been talking about with the unions and everything, Trump's manufacturing agenda aligns perfectly with reviving the industrial sectors in New York. And that would give Mamdani a big win if he can start bringing factories and American workers. That includes blacks. I know they don't like black people anymore, the Democrats, but that includes the blacks. Puerto Rican population is very high up there. So those are all Americans. And then, of course, everybody else. But we have solidly American employees available for manufacturing jobs that could occur in New York City, in the boroughs, with help from wherever the hell the mayor lives, right? Tech and innovation. While AOC killed Amazon's HQ too, right? Trump can bring AI, fintech, and cyber security projects to the city without progressive interference if Mamdani wants to work with him. In other words, Trump can give Mamdani the most spectacular first-time mayor ever if Mamdani plays ball, and all Albany can do is kick his ass around and make him look like a bitch. And that's where the political landscape is going to shift. AOC wants to be a gatekeeper for Mamdani's success. She thinks that she can be the voice of the federal government that delivers to him. But that means he has to listen to her exactly. He will always be on the side of the stage as long as that woman's around. He will never be in the front. He will always be on the side. He will be making sure that the water is cool later on when she must have a drink. And I don't see that guy doing that. Okay. But if Trump becomes the actual source of the results, AOC gets sidelined. She can no longer take credit for anything. She can no longer shape the agenda. And Mamdani sees firsthand that Trump gets things done while the socialist wing of his party only delivers press conferences and barely keeps control of the largest terrorist force outside of that sponsored by Iran. That's how realignment begins. And so, what does Trump gain? What the fuck do you think? So he looks like the adult, obviously. He looks bipartisan. He looks like the only national leader capable of helping America's largest city clean itself up. And he quietly fractures the Democratic coalition in New York. Hochul looks weak. AOC looks irrelevant. And Trump emerges as the statesman who delivered results when everybody else played the ideological games. Because if Mamdani doesn't understand, he is in league with, he is an egotist surrounded by other egotists in man. They cannot make it where he succeeds. Even if he succeeds, he must fail because his succeeding in their mind means that one of them fail. So his best chance to succeed and keep his socialist agenda on track is to play games with his own people, but to have real deals with the president of the United States. Trump just didn't meet with New York socialist mayor. He co-opted him. Look at that video. He offered him a political lifeline, and he set the stage for a quiet but powerful shift in the city's political future. And sometimes that's what has to be done. It's not always the iron fist, which is what the Democrats are preaching. Sometimes it is a simple handshake, and we can turn that entire shitty city completely around. So that's about it for this. Any questions or comments? Feel free to add them in there. Any particular points about what's going on, always contact us. And we are on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Substack. We have our own site, www.southfloridaconservative.com, which has either additional longer stories, or we can delve into more things for you there. Sign up for our newsletter because pretty soon we are going to be dropping out of all this nonsense and just focusing on a newsletter that'll include video links and everything else in it. So you don't have to worry about getting ratioed or whatever the hell happens to you when you're online. So anyway, that's it. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you later on. Goodbye.